Hello, everyone. This is Aprajita, a story scholar with the 1947 Partition Archive. We are dedicated to collecting, documenting, and preserving oral history involving the events from partition. This year, we are commemorating 75 years of partition through our series 75 Days of Partition. We began this on 3rd June, historically, when Mountbatten Plan was announced, and we will go on till 17th August. This is day 60. With your love and support, we have been bringing interesting conversations around partition with various scholars, writers, academicians, and speakers from other fields. It has been an amazing journey so far, with opportunities to learn and maintain the interest in this important part of our history. Today, we have Gitanjali with us. She has been previously a story scholar with the 1947 Partition Archive. To tell you more about her, she graduated from LaSalle, Singapore, with a BA honors degree in advertising, and she has been working in the industry since 2009 as a freelance first and then as a full-time employee for QTP Entertainment Private Limited. She joined the archive in December 2017 as story scholar. Gittanjali C. Kalro is a writer and entrepreneur. She writes and performs poetry in Sindhi, intertwined with Hindi or English translation. She has conducted 61 interviews with Sindhi partition survivors for the 1947 Partition Archive. She was also an assistant director on Still Standing, a documentary on the life, culture, and struggles of the Sindhis across 7 countries. In 2019, she ran a podcast under the banner Sindhi Bundi with original stories and poems available on SoundCloud. She most values her legacy as the granddaughter of the founder of the iconic Ganga Ram's bookstore in Bangalore. Her essay Dukan on the ecosystem of Sindhi shops was published in Sindhi Tapestry, which was edited by Saz Agarwal. And in today's conversation, she is going to talk about her experiences. I welcome you, Gitanjali, to today's episode. Thank you for agreeing to come and share your experiences.
Thank you, Mehrbani. Mehrbani to the archive. All of you, I think I'm so always inspired by what 1947 Partition Archive does, and I always endeavor to be involved with them. So thanks again.
Thank you so much. So, tell us, how did you begin to take interest in partition and how you came to know about the archive, and what has been your experience with the 1947 Partition Archive?
So I was looking to become a very strong writer in 2018, and I had discovered that my mother tongue is something that really makes me happy. To write in my mother tongue really makes me happy. Uh, at that point of time, the archive had launched their Sindhi uh, partition stories, the story scholarship for that. And I think it was sponsored by the Vadvani Foundation. And so, based on that, I got connected to the archive. Actually, my boss from QTP helped me connect to it because it was a Facebook post. And once I did that, I collected my first story for Baldev Matlani and then submitted it to the archive. And I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. Look, as Sindhis, we know, or at least in 2017, when I started, we knew very little about what it is to be a Sindhi. I'm a third generation Sindhi, and so I knew very little about things to do like Bombay Presidency or why Sindh and Karachi and Bombay are so close together. So these were very important know-how about being a Sindhi that I didn't know, and the archive gave me a chance to understand all that while recording stories. Also, I love stories. Like, I can actually sit and listen to people all day long. uh, so yeah, for me it was a great opportunity in that sense.
Yeah, in our previous conversation with Rita Kothari, she was saying that how Sindhi language is dying in India, especially. And it's good to know that somebody is writing in Sindhi language and taking interest in it and promoting it. But tell me, why were you particularly interested in collecting Sindhi stories, and what were your major findings during your term as a story scholar? And was there something unique to your research that you could discover?
Okay, I think there's four questions there. I'm going to try and answer it one by one.
Yes,
So the
please.
first question is, why did I choose the language? I speak Sindhi very well. We speak Sindhi at home, and we know that it's not a fluently spoken language. We're not the community because it's scattered. Uh, Nobody speaks it too much because it's not the language of the market. Children don't speak it at home because it's replaced by Hindi, English, or whatever the local language of the region is. So even in Hong Kong, few families speak Sindhi, few don't. Uh, but this is the case for most Sindhi Hindus who left Sindh, right? Now, once you don't have the land, you don't have the attachment, a lot of things get scattered. And now I knew that my Sindhi was good, but it wasn't as great or as strong as my English grammar, English syntax, English writing. Once I started talking to the Sindhi elders, I I think my vocabulary became so good that I could talk to my parents with using words that they would say, yes, yes, I know this is something that, we used to say, or we used to talk about, or I've taught them words, or of course, my mom has a bank of words which she keeps hidden in her head. Uh, but yeah, these were some of the very, very personal reasons that I wanted to interview people in my mother tongue. I wanted to learn the language. I wanted to be fluent in the language. Also wanted to learn what is this great strife about. What is it to cross the ocean? I have a line in one of my poems which says, "Asa panje deshamo panje desh aya se," which means we came from our country to our country. We came from India to India. We didn't come from Pakistan to India, right? For all reasons and purposes, it was divided, but it was still India for us. Uh, you know, People as far as 1975 have come into India because they wanted to maintain the chastity of their religion, right? And it sounds very like, oh my God, why do you want to do it only for your religion? And even Gandhi says, don't know why people are flooding from each side. We have promised them that they will not lose their faith. But we all know what's happening now. And I mean, it's very hard, okay? Like, people who had everything gave up everything, yeah, Prajita. And they gave up everything just so that they could continue to pray to a god that they believe. Faith is really, it has no measure to what faith can help you do. Yeah.
Yeah, I
uh,
can totally see. Yeah, with the passion that you are saying it, and it's really heartfelt, the pain you are describing here, and the dilemma that the people had become refugees in their own country. That was a pain that has been a trauma for a whole country. uh,
yeah.
so yeah, would you also like to talk about like some of the challenges that you faced during your term as a story scholar?
uh, some of the challenges, I think challenges were many, but one of the things with the Sindhis, and this is particular, very, very salient to the Sindhi people, is that they didn't want to talk about partition, right? So the worst of them I can understand, like, who've lost a lot, whether it was financially, emotionally, in terms of family, all of that I can understand. But there have been people through habit who have gotten silenced, Okay, why do we need to talk about something that is no use to us? uh, how do I say it? कि इसकी कोई जरूरत नहीं है. Now zarurat is a very important word for us. Yeah, what is the benefit? Benefit at least has a little more this thing, but there is no need to bring up old and forgotten thoughts. So that is the biggest challenge when it comes to Sindhi story collection. uh, and we face, at least I knew that was the biggest issue to fight with. Slowly but surely, like, one of the things that did happen was that if I was successful in collecting one or two stories of people in the same family, compound, colony area, then I would get 8, 10, right? And some were really hard. So I'd come every 7, 8 interviews, I'd meet a roadblock where I wouldn't be able to find anybody else. Right? Now people like, of course, the archive first, where I got to interview a lot of the Vatani family. After which, and people from there, then they said, you know what, I know 7 other Sindhi people. Let me connect you to them. And that was great because I mean, I owe so much to Venus Complex in Bombay. Uh, that I mean, it's like second. It was like my second archive home to collect stories. Then, places in Ullasnagar, which is the Shanti Prakash Ashram. I still keep in touch with them because I interviewed a whole bunch of senior citizens in the ashram. Uh, then I also went to other cities. So I went to Pune because Saz Agarwal was there, who is a prolific writer on Sindhi culture. And she helped me get a lot of uh, interviews. Um, from then, I came to Bangalore. I wanted to interview people who speak my dialect of Sindhi. They are really the hardest. I barely got anything from my immediate family, right? But I got some interviews in. I got one interview in Mysore, and I got connected to somebody called Harish Jaktiani in Bangalore. And of course, like I said, it's a ripple effect. Then Harish uncle connected me to 8 people. Then I met another roadblock once I went back to Bombay, and I couldn't get anybody. I think I searched all that I could online, offline, this line, that line. Finally, I think what had happened was some of the interviews had gotten lost of one archivist in, amongst all of us story scholars. And so then uh, my team leader, I can't remember what the person who leads you is called. Uh, so he was extremely helpful. And he said, Gitanjali, I know you're stuck. This has happened with one of our archivists, and why don't you go and connect with them?
Yeah,
And
the
so,
field officer you're talking about.
yeah, yeah, the field officer. So then again, there were like 8 Sindhi uncles who were like, Lali, Nyani, come home, please take our interview. And they were all very sweet. Once it starts happening, it's like a ripple effect. Yeah. So that's the joy of working in your culture. The moment they recognize that you're honest and true, then they help you get through that.
Yeah, Gitanjali, I think every scholar who is working in this field and collecting, devoted to collecting oral interviews has faced this question uh, every once and then that, what is the benefit of collecting these stories? Why are you doing this? And I think the whole existence and how, as a story scholar, we are asked to prepare this question beforehand. You should know it from your heart that why you're doing it, and the whole existence of the archive is also based on this question. So would you like to address that? What did you think? Why is it important to collect all these interviews, despite that they are bringing up pain, the past
Yeah.
memories? Yeah.
So I mean, I think for at least when I speak from a Sindhi perspective, right? I think any Sindhi, whether Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, whoever they are, if you speak Sindhi, right, go and collect a story of somebody who has gone through partition. I bet you it will change the very core of your being. And I'm not saying that simply. These are not just words I'm throwing away. Uh, it has changed the core of my being. Uh, when you listen to, and I know this has happened to other scholars who've collected stories in Sindhi. Now, I was on a speed train, but uh, another scholar whose name again I can't remember, but she took her father's interview over 2 to 3 sessions, each ranging from an hour to 2 hours, and then going on, right? This is how I come back to Saz, but this is how even Saz Agarwal started her journey into writing. The thing is that our parents and grandparents have hidden so much in them that that we don't realize. And this is also what one of my favorite interviewees, like, you're doing these interviews the first few times and you're like, oh my god, this is so tiring, it's so taxing, I can't feel like this all the time. But Mohini Hingorani, Dr. Mohini Hingorani, and I must be very, very thankful to the Hingorani family here. So Mohini auntie really like opened this door for me. So I was talking to her, asking her questions, and when it came to one thing, she said, "Do you know what is bhugal tivan?" So it's a dish, okay? So she asked, "Do you know what is bhugal tivan?" So I said, "I know what is bhugal chawar, which is uh, how do I say? It's a spice soaked rice that we cook together." Okay, uh, and I said, "No, I don't know it." So then she said, "Okay, I'll tell you." And it was like the very first time where somebody so much older was like, "Come, child, let me tell you this story." And I mean, we can look up 100,000 things on Google and YouTube, but when somebody recognizes that need in you of what you are looking for and explains it with that much love, okay, uh, it's a different sort of, it's like a dam that opens up, and then
I
there is
think
no reason, like, benefit
I think that's
to
a,
show use.
yeah, very important thing that you have said here, that it's not just about the pain but also about those happy memories that they get to share with the coming generation and the future generation, and they will be able to know so much about them. Since you have been mentioning like Saz Agarwal, so you mentioned that an essay was published in Sindhi Tapestry and edited by Saz Agarwal. Can you tell to the audience what was it about?
Okay, so I come from a business family. I mean, you mentioned it in the introduction. My father, my grandfather, even my great grandfather, they've all sold books, right? So the idea of dukan is very, very important to us. It's like a sacred space. But I've only seen my father function in that manner, my father and my grandfather and uncles and all of them, right? So I've seen them function with that sort of love for the business space. Now when I went to Ulhasnagar, right, we're all like, who is Gitanjali, what is this identity of being a Sindhi, what is this about? And identity is also not just about, hey, my name, my surname, and my name and my father's name. It's not just about that. It's also about recognition. Yeah. So when I went to Ulhasnagar, I felt that same kind of ecosystem that my father has in his store in all these other uncles that I didn't know in their stores. So they all have like a water can in front of their shop. Yeah. Uh, they all have people that they come to work for. Yeah. In the middle of the day in Ulhasnagar, it is so scorching hot. You will not see any people on the road. But these people are there in shops because they have to pay the security guard, they have to pay the sweeper, they have to pay the accountant, they have to pay their vendors, and along with that there is also the bird and the dog and the this and the that who get fed because of them. So like people go to the shop too, and I remember even my father during COVID, he would say, you know, this accountant is coming from so far to work in the shop, and because she needs the salary, so I must go to the shop. This It's a big thing, right? When you are not running a business just for yourself but for the sake of the ecosystem, and you will see the ecosystem in Ulhasnagar once you go there. For me, that was a very strong part of my identity, that just like, you know, everything just came together. And I in the essay I say that along with the weight of carrying my laptop and camera and everything, I also put down the weight of finding my identity. uh,
I
so
think your
yeah.
essay would be really amazing and interesting to read. Gitanjali, you say that you write poetry as well, and that too in Sindhi, with the translations that you provide along with. Would you like to share any of your creations that are close to your heart?
um, sure. So I wrote this before I started collecting stories. Some people who might have joined today have heard it on Saturday, but I'll say it again. Try and say it with the English translation today, right? But you'll have to give me like a few seconds in between to try and get the lines correct. Okay. Uh, so this is dedicated to uh, well, all the uncles and aunties that made me their nyani during this process. And this is for people like Harish Jaktiani, for Jeevat, Jeevat uncle, for Satan Santumal uncle, and of course the Hinguranis and Vadvanis, right? So this is dedicated to all of them. The name of the poem is Boli. Boli means language, and like in Hindi, you say Hindi bhasha. In Sindhi, we say Sindhi Boli. So I'll start again. Um, Boli. माखे माखे सिंध सां कोई मोह नाहे माखे सिंध सां कोई मोह नाहे ऐं हुजे बि कीअं जेकी धरती न ॾिठी न ॿुधी न महसूस कई जंहिंजी हवाए मुंहिंजे रूह में वसियल न आहे हुन सां छा मोह हुजे I have no love for Sindh. I have really no connection for Sindh either. And how can I be in love with a land that I haven't seen, heard, haven't felt, whose the land which where the breeze does not live in my lungs? How can I be in love with such a land? मांखे सिंधियुनि सां बि अहिड़ो वॾो कोई मोह न आहे मांखे सिंधियुनि सां बि अहिड़ो वॾो कोई मोह न आहे हा नानो नानी ॾाॾो ॾाॾी मामो मामी चाचो चाची हिननि सां सभु घणो ई मोह आहे ऐं हुजण बि खपे पर जॾहिं कॾहिं मांखे सिंधियूं एयरपोर्टनि में मॉलनि में मेट्रो में मिलंदा आहिनि त हीअं लॻंदो आहे भई असां ॿिन्ही जे विच में हिकु लकीर छिकिजी पई आहे हिकु सित छिकिजी पई आहे I have no great attachment with Sindhis also. I have no great attachment with other Sindhis also. Yes, uncle, aunts, grandparents, children, I'm attached to, and I should be attached to it. But whenever I meet Sindhis outside of home, in malls, in stores, at the airport, uh, anywhere but the home, I feel like somebody has drawn an invisible line between us. So why am I here then? Why am I here? Why am I telling you my story? Why am I reciting my poetry to you? Why does the voice of my grandmother, my mother, live in the soul of my pen? तमाहिते छो आयां हिते मां अची करे तव्हांखे पंहिंजी नज़्म छो थी ॿुधायां छो मुंहिंजे कल्म खे मुंहिंजे माउ जी ॾाॾीअ जी मुंहिंजे माउ जो ॾाॾीअ जो आवाज़ ॿुध में ईंदो आहे छो जो सिंधी मुंहिंजी आहे सिंधी ॿोली मुंहिंजी आहे सिंधी ॿोली मुंहिंजे दिलि जी ॿोली आहे मुंहिंजे रूह जी ॿोली आहे मुंहिंजे दिमाग़ जी ॿोली आहे because Sindhi is mine. The language of Sindh is mine. It is the language of my heart, the language of my soul, the language of my mind. छो जो सिंधी मुंहिंजी आहे सिंधी ॿोली मुंहिंजी आहे छो जो सिंधी मुंहिंजी आहे yeah thank you
That
Aparajita.
is that is really heart touching, Gitanjali, and a very very beautiful piece. And I think this yearning for home that you have crafted in your poetry, that you have you have been able to capture that essence that is felt by so many, the second generation, the third generation, the land where their parents actually belonged to, their families had lived for so many years, and then finding a kind of what do you say, like what if that language, that space in the language that you can call your own, that you can own it while being away from the land that you originally belong. That is, yeah, truly beautiful. Thank you,
You.
Gitanjali, for coming here today and sharing your findings, research, your beautiful poetry. It was a great pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you, Aparajita. Thank you to the archive. I hope more and more Sindhis take it up even once for whoever is listening, no matter how old you are or how young you are, all you need to do is pick up your phone camera and record it by voice or video. And that's all we need. That's all. It's actually what you need. Whether the archive needs it or not is like, I can't entice you to do it. But this I can tell Sindhis that you are doing this for yourself. You will not find this in any history book, in any poetry book, in any
I think
and poem that comes
there's
word
some
updates,
problem
you
with
go
sound
sample our
issue.
things, it will change your life. It will change the core of your being.
Share. Thank you for sharing that very very important message to each and all out there. For those who are watching, this is 75 Days of Partition. We are the 1947 Partition Archive, and we have collected and documented 10,200 interviews with the partition witnesses. It has been a phenomenal journey with a great deal of things that we can find out through oral histories, which might not have been possible without them. And we have also reached out with our dissemination project, currently in collaboration with University of Delhi, Ashoka University, Guru Nanak Dev University, with 26 fellows who have received grants to pursue their research interest in partition. To know more, get in touch with us through messages or emailing to our team members. Thank you for tuning in. Since we cannot hear your applause, it would be kind to share your support through clicking on like and heart buttons. We will come tomorrow at the same time. Until then, take care.